Last night, I covered two essential components in a Twitter video. That being, number one, does the phenomenon intentionally make itself difficult to believe that it even exists? And number two, there are many people who demand that we be very skeptical of people like Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon. But in the same breath, they will tell you that there's no reason to be skeptical of the phenomenon because clearly and obviously it's benevolent. And I find that to be a glaring logical failure. Let's dig into the video. So I'm watching the Phenomenon movie. I've been watching it in chunks, and something dawned on me that I've contemplated before, but maybe it's highly relevant to some of the Twitter discussions that are ensuing right now. Now, I just got done watching a segment talking about Reverend William Gill, an Australian missionary that went to Papua New Guinea. He claims that in 1959, he saw a very large flying saucer. I think it was only about 200 feet off the ground. It wasn't just him, it was a totality of 38 people. And he saw, allegedly, beings on top of the craft. And the large craft only around 200 feet above the ground with beings standing on top of the craft. This ensued for hours. And he said he waved at them and the beings on top of the craft waved back. And then it goes into the aerial school landing. But there's a book by, I think his name is Preston Dennett, where he goes into 100 alleged UAP school landings. So the Rua, Zimbabwe school landing is one of many. So what is this? What kind of picture does this paint? Well, what it paints is that the phenomena itself does not want to make it easy for people to believe that it exists. Because if it wanted to make it easy for people to believe it exists, its approach to informing civilization about its existence would be far different. Unless you want to argue that the phenomena is not, somehow lacks clarity in how to present itself in a way where it's easy for human beings to accept its reality. That seems a little far-fetched to me, but I don't rule it out. Now, why is this relevant to what I'm discussing here? It's relevant because, as I pointed out on Twitter today, I find it ironic that there are people who are so adamant about people like Chris Mellon and Luis Elizondo, right? Be skeptical of them. They might be disinformation agents. And frankly, they may be disinformation agents. What they've done thus far doesn't appear that way to me. They've caused the government to have to be more transparent on the issue. But some of these same people will tell you, trust the phenomena. It's good. The phenomena is altruistic. It means no harm. They have no counterintelligence capabilities. They would never want to lead humanity astray. They're trying to raise man's consciousness and elevate our species. That's what they would tell you, as if they know it with certainty. Where's the critical thinking? That would at least foster some doubt that is certainly the case. And I'm not even saying it's not the case. I don't know. But going back to my earlier sentiments, if the phenomenon wanted to make it easy for humanity to accept its reality, would they present themselves how they have? Schoolyard landings, somehow ensuring that no footage is taken of it that cannot be disputed, and somehow ensuring that for decades, after all these years, there is not one piece of film that seals the deal. Is that happenstance? Is that coincidence? Or is that manipulation? Now, the skeptics would tell you the reason there's no seal the deal footage is because there's no phenomenon. They may be right. I don't agree with that perspective because, as I think Ross Coulthart pointed out in a discussion, if it's true that they have turned off nuclear weapons, ICBMs, with all the shielding, well, they can keep you from taking photographs or even maybe manipulate your consciousness. They may have artificial intelligence that we can't even wrap our heads around. If they don't want to be detected in a explicit way that cannot be disputed, well, I think that they would be capable of doing that, frankly. But we're dealing with a covert phenomenon that is extremely covert and seems to have control over how much is documented. And in the ways of which there is witness testimony, we often have incidents which are not conducive for belief, conducive instead for skepticism. I don't know about you, but I smell manipulation. Now you could tell me it's here to raise our consciousness, brother, and it might be, but it might not be. And there is justification, rationality to be suspicious of the phenomenon. And those that tell you otherwise are indulging in their opium, their dogmatism as it pertains to the phenomenon. They're not objective, in my opinion. They can say they are, but I don't agree. I guess the point of this video is people who struggle to believe that this phenomenon exists, they have a point. They have a point. And people who believe this phenomenon exists also have a point. So we kind of have this schism that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And I smell manipulation. I smell some sort of balancing act that has been perpetrated by a higher intelligence with extremely advanced artificial intelligence. Doesn't seem random to me, but then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is random, and it just happened to work out this way. I don't know. But to tell me that I need to be hyper skeptical of people like Chris Mellon and Luis Elizondo, but the phenomenon? No, brother. No, brother. The phenomenon is looking out for our highest good. Ignore the fact that the way it presents itself is highly conducive to skepticism and doubt by many people and our institutions. But that's not the phenomenon's fault. The phenomenon has no faults, man. It's perfect. It's without blemish. Sometimes there is a lack of balance in this discussion, and I think that's unfortunate. And I think balance would dictate a much different perspective. It would demand a lot more doubt. I can't get on board with people who are so convinced of their narrative because we're dealing with something so incredibly mysterious, which allows and facilitates so many varying interpretations. If the phenomenon really wanted us to all have a interpretation that is shared amongst all of us, it would approach our civilization far differently. For one, it wouldn't be covert, for starters. I get very disappointed by the dogmatism and blatant subjectivity of some of the UFO community. It's called motivated thinking. They want a certain narrative to be true, so they interpret all of the material in a way that allows them to feel confidence in their narrative, instead of looking at it objectively, looking at many different possibilities, and acknowledging we don't have a conclusive answer. That's all I got to say for tonight. That's my reflection for tonight. Have a nice evening. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You can become a patron, you become a YouTube member, or you could even just give me a one-time donation. All of those possibilities are in the links below in the description. Or you can just slap a like on this bad boy and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all YouTube members, patrons, those who've bought merch, those who've given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.